What thing has permanently altered your body without you realizing? Story 1. In college, I was a dedicated athlete. We were constantly told that pain was temporary, but pride lasted forever. I took that to heart, pushing through injuries and discomfort, believing I was building character and strength. Over time, I paid the price. I've had 3 orthopedic surgeries, one of which failed and led to sepsis. Before I even turned 20, I was diagnosed with arthritis. My knees are in terrible shape, cracking, popping, and aching with stiffness that rivals people much older than I am. Every movement reminds me of what I lost. The belief that pain is fleeting has proven to be a lie. Pain isn't temporary, it just settles in and accumulates interest. What I thought was strength turned out to be costly ignorance. I now live with permanent damage that impacts my daily life. The pride I once felt has faded, replaced by the reality of constant physical limitation. If I could talk to my younger self, I'd say, rest, recover, and don't believe that hurting yourself makes you stronger. Because in the end, the pain outlasts the pride. Story 2. I had breast implants for decades, assuming they were harmless. I never imagined how much they would change my body permanently. Over the years, the pressure from the implants deformed my ribs. When I finally had them removed, through an en-bloc procedure that took out the implant and its capsule in one piece, the damage was extreme. The capsules were so calcified they had to be sawed off my ribs, collarbones, sternum, and into my armpits. It was brutal. I was left disfigured. I've had 2 fat transfers to help rebuild some of the lost volume, but the liposuction caused indentations in my waist and sagging around my inner thighs. My breasts are still not symmetrical, but with a bra you can't really tell. I suffered from breast implant illness, something that now comes with a black box warning, thanks to years of advocacy. I wish I had known sooner. I wish doctors had told me about the risks. I live in a body permanently altered by something I thought was just cosmetic. And even though I've tried to fix the damage, there's no going back. I'm just grateful to be healthier now, even if I'm not whole. Story 3. Over 2 decades ago, I had a wisdom tooth removed. It seemed like a routine procedure, but something went wrong during the extraction. The dentist yanked it out in a way that damaged my jaw. The injury wasn't obvious at first, but slowly, things started to change. My jaw began to press upward unnaturally, which shifted the alignment of my face. Now, the right side of my face feels different and my jaw pops constantly. I've lost about 60% of the hearing in my right ear. I also suffer from dizzy spells that hit randomly and violently. It's been 25 years, and I still deal with the consequences. That one dental visit left a permanent mark on my health. I never connected the dots until much later, and by then it was too late. I've seen specialists, but nothing can undo the damage. It's frustrating that something as simple as removing a tooth could lead to this level of disruption in my life. I never thought I'd be living with long-term effects from a common dental procedure, but here I am, still navigating the fallout from one moment in the chair. Story 4. When I was a child and teenager, my grandmother, who owned a hair salon, insisted I needed to wax and pluck my eyebrows. She thought they were too thick and unruly, so I started waxing them into a thin, uniform shape, and I did that for nearly 20 years. I didn't realize then that repeated waxing and plucking can permanently damage hair follicles. Now, my eyebrows are patchy, thin, and barely grow back. No amount of serum or castor oil has brought them back fully. It may seem minor compared to larger health issues, but eyebrows frame the face. Losing them has changed how I look and how I feel about myself. I sometimes feel self-conscious without makeup or tinting. I never imagined something as simple as eyebrow grooming in my teens would leave permanent marks. If I could go back, I'd tell my younger self to leave them alone, to embrace their natural shape. Trends come and go, but the hair doesn't always follow. Now, I'm stuck with the result of years of trying to fit someone else's idea of beauty, and it's a daily reminder of how little things add up. Story 5. I struggled with anorexia as a teenager, and it left a lasting imprint on my body. At the time, I thought I was just losing weight, gaining control, but the damage was deeper and more enduring. Years later, my dentist was confused when I came in and my teeth were suddenly in much worse condition. My enamel had thinned dramatically. My bones, too, became fragile. Even minor bumps, like lightly hitting a wall, make me feel like I might break a bone. I didn't understand then that starving myself would rob my body of essential nutrients. Now, I live with the aftermath. I can't undo what I did to my growing body. Anorexia stole more than just time and happiness. It stole the foundation of my physical health. I look healthy now, but I'm brittle inside, literally. The smallest slip can cause cracks, both in bone and spirit. If you're a teenager reading this, please eat. Please take care of your body. You only get one, and it's not as resilient as you think. I wish I'd realized that sooner, before the damage was done. Story 6. Growing up with a large chest made me self-conscious. I started slumping my shoulders to make myself look smaller, to hide. Over time, that poor posture became permanent. Now, I suffer from chronic shoulder pain, neck stiffness, and lower back discomfort. What started as a coping mechanism to avoid attention turned into a lifelong source of pain. Eventually, I had a breast reduction in 2003. My husband at the time was against it. He liked how I looked and didn't understand the pain I was in. I had to fight him for the surgery. It took me 5 more years to leave that relationship, but the reduction was the first step in reclaiming my body and my autonomy. It was the best decision I ever made. I still have pain, but it's manageable now. I can breathe easier, move more freely. I wish I hadn't spent so many years shrinking myself, physically and emotionally, for others' comfort. Now I walk straighter, not just because of the surgery, but because I finally chose myself. Story 7. As a child, I was kept entirely out of the sun. My mother was terrified of skin cancer, so she took extreme precautions. No outdoor play, long sleeves, hats, and absolutely no vitamin D supplements. I didn't know it at the time, but this had a profound effect on my development. My bones are now fragile and prone to breaking. My teeth are weak, and the enamel shears off if I bite down too hard. My body never learned to process calcium properly. It's something I can't fix as an adult. I understand my mom thought she was protecting me, but she ended up compromising the structural health of my body. It's ironic. Go outside too much and you risk skin cancer. Avoid it completely and you risk lifelong skeletal problems. I'm now stuck with the outcome of a well-meaning but misguided decision. I live carefully, always aware of how easily I can get hurt. It's a strange way to grow up, shielded from the sun yet exposed to so much invisible harm. Story 8. I had no idea something was wrong until I passed a blood clot and noticed I was turning yellow. Literally. My skin looked like a Simpsons character. By the time I sought medical help, I was diagnosed with stage 3B cancer. A 6-centimeter tumor had been pressing against my bile ducts within my liver. It had been growing silently, without noticeable symptoms for the longest time. I still don't know how long it was inside me before my body finally screamed for help. The realization was terrifying. I went from feeling a bit off to being seriously ill in the blink of an eye. The tumor had already done significant damage. I've since undergone treatment and I'm still here, but I often wonder how different things might have been if I had recognized the signs earlier, or if there had even been signs to catch. Sometimes our bodies carry monsters without making a sound, and by the time we hear them, they've already made themselves at home. Story 9. When I was younger, I constantly listened to music through headphones at full volume. I thought I was invincible. I also went to concerts, standing right near the speakers, letting the bass vibrate through my chest. One night, a live mix engineer messed up and blasted the crowd with feedback. It hit me hard. Since then, I've had tinnitus, constant ringing in my ears. I'm only 26, but I already wear hearing aids. The ringing is louder than almost everything else. It makes conversations difficult, sleep harder, and silence unbearable. One especially bad night, I stood too close to a DJ while drunk. That decision made the ringing worse. Now everything sounds like it's underwater. People joke about loud music ruining your ears, but it's no joke. Tinnitus is relentless. It never stops. I've met people who've taken their lives over it. I'm hanging in there, but I'd give anything to go back and tell my teenage self to turn the volume down. Protect your ears. You only get 2 and they do not heal. Story 10. I had twins, and my stomach stretched far beyond what I thought was possible. After giving birth, I was left with a pot belly that wouldn't go away. For 8 years, I blamed myself for not losing the baby fat. I punished my body with diets and workouts. It wasn't until recently, 8 years later, that I discovered I had diastasis recti, a 6 to 8 inch gap down the center of my abs. My organs were herniated. That belly wasn't fat. It was my intestines pressing forward. I had surgery 7 weeks ago to correct it. Now I'm wearing clothes 2 sizes smaller. My marriage is improving. My confidence is back. I still have to forgive myself for years of unjustified self-hatred. But I'm healing. I can't wait to try yoga with stronger abs and see what my body can do. Recovery is going well, and for the first time in a long time I feel hopeful. It wasn't laziness or lack of effort. It was an undiagnosed medical issue. I wish I had known sooner, but I'm grateful I know now. Story 11. After giving birth to twins, I was left with a belly that never seemed to go away. For years, I called it baby fat and blamed myself for not being able to lose it. I tried everything: dieting, workouts, even emotional self-punishment. It wasn't until recently, 8 years later, that I learned the truth. I had diastasis recti. My abdominal muscles had separated completely down the center, leaving a 6 to 8 inch gap and allowing my internal organs to push forward. I'm now 7 weeks post-op from surgery to correct it, wearing clothes 2 sizes smaller. My marriage is improving, and so is my self-image. I'm learning to forgive myself for those 8 painful years of self-blame. I can't wait to try yoga again, now that my abs are structurally sound. I'm excited to see how much more confident I feel in my own skin. It's terrifying how long I lived thinking I was just fat, when I was actually dealing with a medical condition. The surgery didn't just fix my body, it gave me back a sense of wholeness. For the first time in years, I feel hopeful about my body and my future. Story 12. Pregnancy took a lot from me. I expected the usual changes: weight gain, stretch marks, but what I didn't expect was the long-term toll it would take. I lost teeth, my hair thinned, my nails became brittle, and I developed ongoing heart problems. Sleep became elusive, and even when I could rest, it never felt restorative. No one truly prepares you for how much pregnancy can change your body permanently. People often treat it like something temporary, like you'll just bounce back. But that's not always the case. Some of the damage sticks around. My body doesn't feel like it used to, and in many ways I don't either. I still don't understand why people are so casual about pregnancy. It's not just a physical feat, it's a full-body transformation, and not all of it is reversible. I love my children, but I miss the version of myself that existed before. I don't regret becoming a mother, but I do wish there was more honesty about what it can do to you. A little more compassion would go a long way, especially for those of us still trying to rebuild. Story 13. I thought acne was something you grow out of, but I'm a decade past my teens, and it's still wreaking havoc on my face. Nothing seems to work. I've tried medications, creams, dietary changes, you name it. The worst part? Even if a miracle cure existed today, the scarring would remain. My skin is dark, and that tends to scar more severely than lighter skin. Every breakout leaves a mark, and the accumulation over time has taken a toll. It's not just about vanity. People treat you differently when your face is visibly scarred. Strangers stare. Friends make comments. Chips away at your confidence little by little. Compared to others, this might seem minor, but it's visible. It's the first thing people see. And because of that, it affects everything: job interviews, dating, social events. I've learned to cover it up, but I still feel the sting when I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Acne isn't just a teenage phase for everyone. For some of us, it's a lifelong condition with permanent consequences. And the emotional pain it causes is just as real as any physical scar. Story 14. Depression is more than sadness. It's a kind of absence, like watching your life from behind a fogged-up window. Friends fade away not because they're cruel, but because they stop understanding. They stop buying the excuses, and eventually you stop offering them. One friend told me it's like I'm the living dead. They can't trust that I'll stick around, and honestly, I can't promise that either. Feeling okay is an uphill battle. Every day is a negotiation with your own mind. Most people don't get it until they do. Trying to rebuild a life after depression is exhausting. You sift through the rubble of lost relationships, missed opportunities, and the guilt of being too much or not enough. It's hard to ask for help when you've already needed it so many times. But I'm still here, still trying. And I've come to accept that recovery isn't linear. Some days are better, some are worse. I just hope that one day the people I lost might understand, or maybe I'll find new ones who don't need an explanation. Either way, I'll keep going. Story 15. I was bitten by a tick and didn't think much of it, until fatigue and nerve pain started creeping in. Eventually, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. Changed everything. I'm always tired now. My nerves feel like they're misfiring. Simple tasks can become overwhelming. My dad got Lyme 3 different times. Watching him deteriorate was terrifying. He was the strongest man I knew, physically and emotionally. But Lyme destroyed him. I saw him struggle to climb stairs, cry from the pain of walking, and lose the ability to do things he once loved. It's a cruel disease, especially when it goes untreated for too long. It doesn't just affect your body, it changes who you are. I've learned to manage it somewhat, but there are days when it still wins. I never realized a bug bite could lead to this kind of lifelong damage. Lyme disease is insidious. If you've ever been bitten by a tick, don't just brush it off. Get checked. Early treatment can make all the difference. I wish we'd known that sooner. Story 16. For years, I worked in a toxic job that drained me emotionally and physically. The stress showed up everywhere. Clenched teeth, shoulder pain, digestive issues, insomnia, heartburn, and constant anxiety. I didn't realize how deeply it had seeped into my body until I left. Switching to a low-stress job changed everything. My sleep improved. My stomach settled. I no longer had stress dreams or woke up in a panic. My new boss actually understands emotional intelligence, unlike my previous one, who thrived on chaos. One small joy, my commute now takes me past my old office. I sometimes see familiar faces through the windows, but I just smile and keep driving. Last week, I had to go inside for business. As I walked out, I thought, yep, I made the right decision. Stress doesn't just affect your mind, it eats away at your body. I didn't realize how much it was hurting me until it stopped. Now, I protect my peace like my life depends on it, because it does. Story 17. Working night shifts seemed manageable at first. I adjusted my sleep schedule. I thought I'd adapt. But over time, my body revolted. Even when I had a perfectly timed sleep routine, I felt drained during the day and wired at night. It was like my internal clock had been scrambled. I stuck with night shifts for 2 years. The pay was decent, but the toll on my health wasn't worth it. When I finally quit, it took 6 full months for my body to feel normal again. My sleep cycle had been so thoroughly disrupted that I barely recognized what rested felt like anymore. I'll never do it again. No amount of money can make up for how disoriented and exhausted I felt. It wasn't just fatigue. It was a kind of fog that clouded everything. My concentration suffered, my mood dipped, and my relationships frayed. If you're considering night shifts long-term, think carefully. The effects don't show up all at once. But once they do, they're hard to reverse. Story 18. I've had a sleep disorder my entire life. Falling asleep, staying asleep, it's always been a struggle. I've adapted as best I can, and I'm considered high-functioning in my career. But I often wonder what I could have accomplished if I wasn't exhausted all the time. Sleep deprivation isn't just about being tired. It affects memory, focus, mood, and even immune function. I've lost count of how many times I've pushed through workdays on barely 3 hours of rest. I've tried every trick in the book, supplements, routines, blackout curtains, but nothing fixes it completely. People don't always realize how much sleep shapes your life. You can fake energy for a while, but eventually it catches up. I envy those who wake up feeling refreshed. For me, even good nights are just less bad. I'm still looking for better solutions, but I've accepted that this might be something I manage forever. It's frustrating, but I keep going, because even if I'm tired, I'm still here. Story 19. In my teens, I went through a stretch of bulimia. At the time, I thought it was temporary, something I could just stop, but it left lasting scars on my teeth, my digestion, and my hormones. Now, years later, I still deal with the fallout. My skin reacts strangely, my periods are irregular, and I have a deeply flawed relationship with food. I also suffer from random body pain that doctors can't fully explain. It all started back then, when I was barely eating and purging what little I did consume. Mentally, I wasn't prepared for how long recovery would take, or how incomplete it might feel. The body remembers, even if the mind tries to move on. I wouldn't say the damage is permanent, but it's been over a year since I really felt physically okay, and I'm still not there. If you're going through something similar, please get help. The sooner you start healing, the more of yourself you can preserve. I wish I had. Story 20. Over 2 years, I lost 70 pounds on a diet that, looking back, bordered on disordered eating. It worked for a while, but then I gained back over 100 pounds. And my body hasn't been the same since. I have symptoms similar to Cushing's syndrome. My fat is distributed differently now. I feel like I damaged my metabolism or hormones with the stress I put my body under. Doctors haven't confirmed anything officially, but I know something changed. Another person shared a similar story, lost 50 kilos, gained 30 back. It's comforting to know I'm not alone, but it's also disheartening. We pushed our bodies too far and they pushed back. Story 21. I used to be a skinny, tiny woman. I was constantly harassed or assaulted, not because I was attractive, but because I looked like an easy target. I got tired of screaming, tired of fighting, and especially tired of feeling powerless. I picked up a book by Arnie, a bench, and a basic dumbbell set. I told myself I wouldn't stop until I weighed 45 kilos, or 100 pounds of muscle. Took me 30 years, and menopause kicked in before I fully reached that goal. But by then, I was hooked. I became addicted to being fit, strong, and confident. Now I'm 75, and aside from a bit of arthritis, I'm as physically capable as most people 30 years younger. I feel amazing. Strength training gave me more than just muscle. It gave me safety, confidence, and joy. I no longer walk around afraid of being overpowered. I don't flinch anymore. I stand taller, move with purpose, and feel proud of what I've built. Age didn't stop me, fear did. And once I took control, I never looked back. Story 22. Dating the wrong person. Dating the wrong person can wreck you. I didn't realize how much until friends started telling me that I looked dead. Not sick or dying, just emotionally vacant. I stopped laughing. I stopped smiling. I was just existing. It's hard to explain the toll it takes. You rationalize the bad days, tell yourself they'll get better. But they don't. Eventually, you become a shell of yourself, and the people around you notice before you do. I got out eventually. Took time to rebuild. I had to relearn joy, how to laugh, how to be present, how to feel safe in my own skin again. Love isn't supposed to drain the life out of you. It's supposed to add to it. If someone makes you feel like you're disappearing, that's not love. It's erasure. And you deserve better. I did too. Story 23. I recently lost 160 pounds, and only now do I fully appreciate what being overweight for 20 years did to my body. I didn't notice how much pressure I was putting on my feet until it was gone. I didn't realize how exhausted I was just climbing stairs or walking short distances. Now that I'm thin, I can see the damage. My joints, especially my shoulders, are in bad shape. The weight may be gone, but the strain it left behind is permanent. I can move more freely, but I still feel the echoes of what used to be there. I wish I had taken better care of my body sooner. I wish someone had told me how much easier life could feel. But I'm also proud of what I've achieved. I'm not trying to shame anyone. I just want people to understand the physical cost of long-term obesity. I'm living proof that some damage can't be undone, even after the weight is lost. Story 24. I'm 7 months pregnant, and I've lost a surprising amount of weight, especially in my face. Looking back at old pictures, I barely recognize myself. My face used to look so bloated and puffy. Now, people keep saying I look years younger. The main difference? I stopped drinking. I didn't realize how much alcohol had aged me until I saw myself without it. I'm not going back to drinking after the baby comes. I've seen people drop 10 years off their appearance just by cutting out booze. Honestly, I feel better, sleep better, and look better. It's wild how something so socially accepted can do so much damage. Visit an AA meeting sometime, you'll see people who've shed decades just by quitting. I wish I'd done it sooner, but I'm glad I see it now. Sobriety looks good on me. Story 25. When I lost my mom earlier this year, it felt like she took part of me with her. Literally. I joke that she took half an inch of my hairline with her. Sounds silly, but stress does strange things to your body. Grief hit me in waves. Insomnia, appetite loss, emotional breakdowns, but the physical toll caught me off guard. My hairline receded noticeably. I never thought grief could show up like that, but it did. I miss her every day, and though I laugh about the hairline, the loss runs deep. There's a part of me that still feels raw, even months later. I guess that's how grief works. It leaves marks you can't always see, and some you can. Story 26. For years, I slept on just one side of my face, thinking nothing of it. Turns out that can actually reshape your face over time. I didn't notice until I got older, but now my face is visibly asymmetrical. I used to think that was a myth, but one day I looked in the mirror and realized my cheekbone is higher on one side, my jawline more defined on the other. Subtle, but it's there. And it's not going away. It's not the end of the world, but it's weird to know that something as simple as how you sleep can leave a permanent mark. I've started trying to alternate sides now, but the change is done. Just one more example of how small habits add up over time. Story 27. In my early 20s, I worked retail in high heels, hours and hours on my feet, standing in unnatural positions. I also once jumped off a jetty in Ocean City while drunk and landed right on a sharp rock. I didn't know at the time that my unusually high arches made me prone to foot injuries like plantar fasciitis and heel spurs. Now, years later, I've had repeated flare-ups and even surgery. I can't go barefoot anymore, and I live with near-constant discomfort. I'll be 60 next year, but I walk like I'm 80. Whether you have high arches or flat feet, take care of them. Foot health isn't just about comfort, it's about mobility. And once that's gone, you feel it in every step. Story 28. A few years of CrossFit left me with permanent knee and shoulder pain. The workouts were intense, lifting heavy weights for time. It seemed efficient, but form always suffered under pressure. I've since learned that you can only have two of the following three: heavy, fast, or proper form. Never all three. Going heavy and fast is a recipe for injury, and I learned that the hard way. I still lift, but now I prioritize control and technique. I wish I had done that from the start. CrossFit was fun, but it wasn't worth the damage. Story 29. I had a hollow tonsil that was filled with gunk, and I didn't even know it. Over about 8 years, I went from mild symptoms to getting sick constantly. I had tonsillitis multiple times a year, caught every cold, and my throat always felt off. Eventually, doctors tested me for strep, even though my tonsils didn't look infected. The test came back positive. Turns out I probably had chronic strep for years. The bacteria would just hide in the hollow and recolonize my throat after every round of antibiotics. I finally cleaned out the tonsil and sanitized it with mouthwash, but the real fix came when I had my tonsils removed. It helped, but my sinuses and nose are still a mess. I probably have a staph infection that's hard to get rid of now. One tiny flaw in my body caused years of misery. I just wish it had been taken seriously sooner. Story 30. From ages 6 to 9, I had strep infections almost monthly. Every time I'd sit in urgent care for hours, get a painful throat swab, and then a shot of antibiotics in the butt. I was terrified of needles, so each visit was torture. My mom pushed for a tonsillectomy, but the pediatrician said it wasn't necessary. So the infections continued. My tonsils swelled so badly they began blocking my throat. Sometimes I'd choke on food or liquids, and my breath always smelled awful. Finally, at age 9, I got them removed. The recovery was brutal, but I haven't had a single strep infection since. It was 100% worth it. Looking back, I wish the doctors had listened to my mom sooner. Those years of constant illness were completely avoidable. Story 31. Obstructive sleep apnea is one of those things you overlook, especially if you already have other mental health struggles. You assume your tiredness and low mood are just part of that. But sleep apnea doesn't just hurt your heart. It can quietly ruin your life. A friend of mine had it bad. We shared a hotel room once, and I barely slept. He spent the whole night choking, gasping, making awful noises. I woke him up a few times because it seriously sounded like he was dying. He didn't realize how serious it was until a doctor recommended a sleep study. Turns out, his blood oxygen dropped into the high 70s during sleep. The doctor told him, "If you were in the hospital and I saw these numbers, you'd be intubated." He got a CPAP machine and it changed everything. When we shared a room again in 2023, he slept silently the whole night. If you snore, feel tired all day, or are overweight, don't ignore it. Sleep apnea is more than just annoying. It's dangerous. And often, you won't know how bad it is until someone else hears it. Story 32. Sprains might seem minor, but if you don't treat them right, they can turn into something way worse. I learned that the hard way. I had a bad ankle sprain years ago and didn't rest it properly. I figured it would heal on its own, but I kept re-injuring it over and over. Eventually, I tore the ligament completely and ended up needing surgery. It was a miserable experience. Painful, inconvenient, and expensive. Another person shared a similar story. They didn't treat their sprain seriously, and now they've got a permanently swollen toe and constant clicking in the ankle. That injury happened almost 20 years ago, and they still live with the consequences. It's easy to dismiss a sprain as just a twist, but if it doesn't heal right, it can mess you up for life. I wish I'd taken it seriously from the start. Now I tell everyone, rest it, ice it, wrap it, and don't push through the pain. It's not worth it. Story 33. My parents had us doing manual labor as little kids, like real landscaping, not just helping around the house. I was maybe 5 or 6, hauling 10-pound buckets of rocks from a dumpster across the yard. My brother and I had no idea how to lift properly. No one taught us about posture or using our legs. Now we're 21 and 26, and we both have chronic back, shoulder, knee, and neck pain. Early signs of arthritis, too. It's ridiculous. We're too young to feel this broken. I remember the first time I dislocated my shoulder. I was maybe 5, trying to carry a 5-gallon bucket full of water. My arms just popped out. I didn't even know what was happening. My dad noticed and calmly popped them back in, but didn't stop the work. People laugh when I talk about it like it's a funny childhood memory, but it's not. My body is permanently affected. My parents never learned or acknowledged how wrong it was to make little kids do adult labor. I wish they had. Story 34. I pushed myself to the brink to avoid losing everything. I worked nonstop, took on too much, and ignored every warning sign until I collapsed. That was 5 years ago, and I'm still dealing with the damage. Burnout doesn't just drain you in the moment. It can leave lasting scars. My memory isn't what it used to be. I have trouble focusing. I still feel like my brain isn't fully recovered from that period. And the cruelest part? I still lost everything. All that effort, all that sacrifice, and I still had to start over. If I could go back, I'd tell myself to stop sooner, to cut my losses before I burned out completely. If you're nearing that edge, please take a step back. Burnout isn't just about being tired. It's a full system failure. And coming back from it takes longer than you think. Story 35. When I was in 5th grade, I started punching hard surfaces to toughen my knuckles. I began light, but after a few months, I could hit walls at full force. Still hurt, but I could handle it, no broken bones. But now, years later, I can't apply force with my wrists in any direction except straight. If I try to push or twist, the pain is unbearable. Sometimes I can't even high-five or do push-ups without my hand collapsing in pain. My wrists are possibly permanently damaged. And the worst part? Adults, teachers, martial arts instructors warned me not to do it. Repeatedly. But I thought I knew better. I thought I was building strength. Please, if you want to get stronger, do it the right way. Controlled resistance, proper form, and gradual increases. Not brute force. I was stupid, and now I live with the consequences. Don't be like me. Story 36. I caught COVID in May 2023. 2 months later, I was diagnosed with long COVID. I never bounced back. Before this, I worked in retail management on my feet, constantly moving. Now, I can barely manage sitting at a register part-time. I'm considering going back to school, but honestly, I don't know if I can retain the information. My memory is foggy. My energy is limited. I used to be sharp. Now, even everyday tasks feel overwhelming. Another person shared that they were a software engineer and had to stop working completely. They're on disability now. That hit me hard. I can see myself heading down the same path. My brain feels fried. I couldn't drive for the first 2 years. I can't do the job I trained for. Long COVID isn't just fatigue. It's a whole body disruption. And it's terrifying. Story 37. Psychiatric drugs are handed out so casually, but no one talks about the long-term side effects. For me, they caused serious cognitive decline. I went from reading 2 books a week to struggling with a few pages. I couldn't remember 6-digit codes long enough to type them in. I had to write everything down. I slept 12 hours a day and was still tired. I gained a massive amount of weight and couldn't lose it, even with daily workouts. Once I stopped the medication, I lost 30 kilos in 6 months without even going to the gym. The fatigue faded. I got my energy back. I also lost a lot of hair. And those are just the visible effects. The worst part? When I reported these side effects, doctors brushed me off. They said it was my mental illness, not the medication. It's enraging. There was no real informed consent. Just a 5-minute chat and a prescription. Be cautious and ask questions. You deserve real answers. Story 38. My first girlfriend died when I was young, and it broke something in me. I haven't felt truly happy or content for any extended period since. It'll be a decade in January 2025. She was murdered 37 years ago. I still dream about her. Sometimes I see her in a field of flowers, feel the sun on my skin. It's beautiful, and then I wake up. The joy fades and I'm back to reality. She probably would want me to be happy. Maybe she visits me in dreams to check in. I like to think so, but it's still the best and worst thing. Feeling close to her and then losing her all over again. Grief doesn't fade. It just changes shape. And sometimes it visits you in your sleep. Story 39. I got nerve damage in my hand from cuddling my wife. We fell asleep with her head on my arm. I didn't think anything of it until I started feeling pain when moving my hand a certain way. Now, I have permanent numbness between the knuckles of my pointer and middle finger. It doesn't affect my range of motion anymore, but the sensation is gone. It's such a small thing, but it's strange living with it. She doesn't know the full story, just thinks I had a minor hand issue. I never told her it came from cuddling. It's oddly sweet in a painful kind of way. And yes, I have her head on my arm again right now. Hopefully, this time it turns out better. Story 40. I smoked for almost 10 years. I knew it was bad for my lungs, but I didn't realize how lasting the damage would be. It's been almost 2 years since I quit, and my lung capacity is still terrible. Another regret? Not learning how to exercise properly when I was younger. I wish my parents had encouraged sports or movement. Now, I get winded easily. Even basic workouts feel tough. I hold my breath during stretches or planks without realizing it. I'm trying to fix things now, but it's hard. Breathing shouldn't feel this difficult. I wish I had built better habits earlier. Smoking and inactivity took more from me than I expected. But I'm still trying. One breath at a time. Story 41. I've been dealing with various health issues for years, but everything started to spiral last Christmas. I was constantly tired, barely able to get out of bed. My back locked up halfway down, and I couldn't bend or straighten properly. My joints ached constantly. I managed to get a phone appointment with a doctor, but he rushed me, asked me to name only my worst symptom, and brushed me off. He said I was already on strong painkillers and offered a non-urgent physiotherapy referral. I broke down crying after that call. Months passed. I got worse. Finally, a physiotherapist noticed how much weight I had lost, about 7 stone, and how much muscle I'd wasted. She referred me to rheumatology. In the meantime, I joked to my wife that I must be going through menopause, which led her to check NHS resources. She suspected low testosterone. We pushed for a face-to-face appointment. Eventually, endocrinology found my pituitary gland was functioning at just 10%. An MRI revealed a 2 centimeters tumor that had destroyed most of it. Now I'm on lifelong steroids. I've named the tumor Dave. He's a pain, but he's not going to beat me. Story 42. I was 17 when it happened. He was someone I trusted, a friend of my brother's. I froze. I didn't scream. I just wanted it to end. A few weeks later, I missed my period. The doctor confirmed I was pregnant. I was numb. I wanted it out of me. But I lived in a state where abortion was banned after 6 weeks, and I was already past that. No exceptions, not even for you-know-what. I was told I could carry the baby, give it up for adoption, move on. But how do you move on from carrying your attacker's child inside you? Every kick reminded me. Every day I got bigger, and every day I hated my body more. I gave birth and signed the adoption papers. I haven't seen the baby since. People call me brave, but I don't feel brave. I feel broken. I still have nightmares. I still flinch at touch. I didn't choose this. I was denied a choice, and it changed my entire life. Story 43. I told them something was wrong. I said the pain wasn't normal, that it felt like my insides were tearing apart. The ER doctor glanced at my chart, saw anxiety listed, and dismissed it as stress. For months, I bounced between specialists. They gave me antacids, antidepressants, even suggested yoga. One doctor told me to stop reading WebMD. But the pain got worse. I lost weight. My skin turned gray. Finally, one nurse ordered a scan when I came in doubled over. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. It had spread to my liver. They said if it had been caught earlier, I'd have had better odds. I wanted to scream. I knew something was wrong. But once a woman has anxiety in her file, everything else becomes invisible. We're expected to tolerate pain, to trust the system, even when it fails us again and again. Now I'm in treatment. I'm fighting, but I'm also furious. The system didn't just fail me, it almost buried me. Story 44. I turned 50 and suddenly I stopped existing. Men stopped holding doors open. Salespeople stopped offering help. My opinions were interrupted more often in meetings. I became ma'am, dear, and worst of all, ignored. No one warns you that aging as a woman isn't just about wrinkles or sagging skin. It's about invisibility. You become wallpaper in your own life. I used to turn heads when I walked into a room. Now I feel like I'm in the way. And the paradox? If you fight it, if you get Botox, wear makeup, dress younger, you're mocked for being desperate or trying too hard. If you let yourself age naturally, you're called brave, in a tone that sounds a lot like pity. I didn't expect to mourn my own relevance. I didn't think I'd miss being seen. But I do. Aging shouldn't feel like erasure, but for women, too often it does. I haven't disappeared, but the world stopped looking. Story 45. People don't like it when you say you don't talk to your mom. They assume you're selfish, ungrateful, or damaged. But no one lived in my house. No one else heard the things she said. She told me I was a mistake, that I ruined her life. She'd go quiet for days, then explode over something small, like a dirty dish or a door left open. I grew up walking on eggshells, always bracing for the next outburst. I tried to fix it. Therapy, letters, even a family intervention. But she didn't want a relationship. She wanted control. And when I stopped giving it to her, she called me disrespectful. A bad daughter. So I stopped calling. It's been 3 years. Holidays are quieter. Milestones sting a little. But I breathe easier. My home feels safe. I don't have to explain myself or defend my boundaries anymore. Estrangement is not easy. But sometimes, loving yourself means letting go of someone who hurt you, even if that person gave birth to you. Story 46. I got a nose job at 24. Everyone said I'd love it. You'll feel so much more confident. It's a fresh start. I went under the knife thinking I'd come out feeling beautiful. But when I woke up, my face didn't look like mine. The swelling went down, but the disconnect stayed. I avoided mirrors. My selfies all felt fake. And the worst part? Everyone kept telling me how great I looked. I smiled and thanked them, but inside, I felt like I'd erased a part of myself. When I told a friend I regretted it, she laughed. "You're just being dramatic," she said. "It's not that different." But it was different. My nose held family history, softness, character. Now it's just average. Generic. I traded uniqueness for approval, and I hate that I ever felt I had to. Story 56. I was 25 when I found out I was born intersex. My medical records said corrective surgery at 8 months old. But no one ever explained what was corrected. Not my parents. Not my doctors. Just silence. I grew up feeling different. I never got periods. I felt disconnected from my body, like something was missing, but I couldn't name it. I thought I was broken. It wasn't until I struggled with infertility that the truth came out. A specialist reviewed my childhood records and gently said, "You know you were born with ambiguous genitalia, right?" No, I didn't. I grieved for weeks. Grieved the decisions made for me, the secrets kept, the identity I never got to claim. My body wasn't defective. It was just different. But they took that from me before I could speak for myself. I'm still coming to terms with it. Still trying to love a body I was taught to mistrust. But now, at least I have the truth. And no one can take that from me again. Story 57. I was living in my boyfriend's car when I found out I was pregnant. I was 16, kicked out by my mom after she caught me sneaking back in past curfew. She called me a disgrace. Said I ruined her reputation. I had nowhere to go. I showered at the gym, ate crackers for dinner, and cried myself to sleep in the back seat. I was terrified, not just about the baby, but about surviving the next 24 hours. People look at homeless teens and think, they must have made bad choices. But sometimes, the only choice you made was being born into a family that didn't love you enough. I eventually found a shelter for young mothers. I gave birth in a hospital bed surrounded by strangers. But I wasn't alone anymore. The staff helped me apply for housing. I got a job. Slowly, I rebuilt. My daughter is 5 now. She doesn't know what we went through yet. But one day I'll tell her. And I'll make sure she never feels the kind of abandonment I did. Story 58. He wasn't always like that. When we met, he was kind, funny, the first person who made me feel safe. But somewhere along the way, the pills took over. It started with back pain. Then prescriptions. Then lies. Then needles. I found him passed out more times than I can count. I covered for him at work. I cleaned up after him. I told myself he'd get better if I just loved him enough. But love doesn't fix addiction. Love can't make someone choose life. He overdosed in our bathroom while I was making dinner. I found him slumped over the sink, lips blue. He survived that time. I left 2 weeks later. I still feel guilty for staying. I still feel guilty for leaving. People ask why I didn't run sooner. They don't understand that when you love someone, you grieve them long before they're gone. I lost him 100 times before I walked away. Story 59. My mom got sick when I was 10. Lupus, then kidney failure. My dad left shortly after. I became her full-time caretaker by 12. I missed school to take her to dialysis. I learned how to manage her meds, cook her meals, change her dressings. While other kids were at sleepovers, I was helping her to the bathroom. She apologized, a lot. But I always said I didn't mind. Because I didn't. She was my mom. Still, I lost something. My childhood. My freedom. My sense of ease. I learned how to spot symptoms before doctors did. How to argue with pharmacists. How to stay calm when she collapsed. When she died, I was 19. Everyone told me how strong I was. No one asked how I was. Took years to stop flinching every time the phone rang. Years before I stopped waking up at 3 a.m. to check if someone was breathing. Caregiving makes you grow up fast. Too fast. Story 60. It was 2004 and I told my mom I was gay. I was 15. She cried for 3 days and then took me to a Christian counselor. By the end of that week, I was in a residential facility for behavioral correction. They called it therapy. It was conversion. They took my phone. my clothes, my name. I had to go by client number 47. They made me write fake letters to imaginary girlfriends. They shocked my hands when I said I had crushes on boys. They told me God would never love someone like me. I was there for 4 months. When I got out, I didn't talk about it. Not for a decade. I buried the memories so deep I couldn't even say the word gay without wanting to throw up. Now I'm 34, married to a man who lets me cry without asking for explanations. But I still flinch when I hear the word therapy. I survived, but I shouldn't have had to. Story 61. Middle school was hell. Not because of the students, but because of the teachers. They mocked me for asking questions, rolled their eyes when I stuttered. One even imitated my voice in front of the class. The others laughed. I was 12. I stopped raising my hand, stopped going to school some days. My grades slipped. My parents thought I was lazy, but I was just scared. When I told the principal, he said, "They're trying to toughen you up, like bullying builds character." Didn't. It built walls. It built shame. It made me believe I was stupid, annoying, unworthy. I didn't realize how much it affected me until I was 30 and still apologizing every time I spoke in meetings. Teachers have power, and when they use it to humiliate, it stays with you. Story 62. He was someone I trusted. We'd known each other since high school. I never thought twice about being alone with him, until one night he kissed me when I said no. Then he pushed further. I froze. I didn't scream. I just kept saying stop, quieter each time. After, I told myself it wasn't assault. I told myself I had led him on, that it wasn't bad enough to count. But it was, and it did. I see him sometimes laughing in group photos, still invited to weddings, still liked by everyone. I smile and keep quiet because I don't want to ruin the mood. But inside, I'm ruined every time I see his face. Story 63. My dad died by his own doing on a Tuesday. I was 19. He left no note, just silence. At his funeral, people whispered, said he was troubled, said at least he's at peace now, and then they stopped saying anything at all. No one brought him up again. His name disappeared from conversations. It was like he never existed. But I remember everything. His laugh, his love for jazz, the way he cried during sad movies. He wasn't just a cause of death, he was a person. And I'm tired of pretending he wasn't. Story 64. Something I didn't do. I spent 18 months in jail for a crime I didn't commit. Wrong place, wrong time. A flawed witness statement. A public defender too overworked to care. I lost my job, my apartment, my friends. I came out with nothing but a record. Even after the charges were dropped, I couldn't find work. Employers saw felony and stopped reading. I got denied housing. I slept in shelters. I thought about giving up. My name was cleared, but my life wasn't. Story 65. I signed up to be a surrogate for a couple that couldn't have children. Felt like the right thing to do. I carried the baby for 9 months. I felt every kick, every hiccup. I delivered her. I held her once. Then they took her. I expected that. But I didn't expect them to cut me off completely. They blocked my number. Deleted the blog they promised would have updates. I was erased. No pictures. No thank you. No evidence I ever existed in her life. I gave someone life. And in return I was discarded. Surrogacy is painted as beautiful. But no one talks about the grief. About what it means to grow a child and have no claim to their smile, their name, their future. Story 66. I grew up believing the world would end before I turned 18. That's what they told us. The leaders said school was pointless, friends were distractions, and questioning anything meant you'd be left behind when the world burned. We lived in isolation, no TV, no internet, just scripture and survival drills. I didn't know who the president was. I didn't know what music sounded like. I thought the outside world was evil. The world didn't end. But my childhood did. When I left at 19, I didn't know how to use a debit card. I didn't know how to date or apply for a job or make a single decision without guilt. I was free technically, but the fear came with me. It took years of therapy to unlearn the shame, the fear, the paranoia. I still have nightmares about being left behind. Escaping wasn't the end of my trauma. It was the beginning of facing it. Story 67. I uploaded a few selfies to a photography forum. Nothing risque, just portraits playing with lighting. 6 months later, I found my face on an ad for a dating app I'd never heard of. Then I saw it again on a fake Instagram account. Then again on an AI-generated adult video. I didn't consent to any of it. Turns out someone scraped my photos and used them to train a facial recognition model. My likeness is now part of an algorithm used to generate fake people, some of whom look eerily like me but not quite. I contacted the platforms. Some removed the content. Most didn't. There are no clear laws. No accountability. Just a face I no longer own. Every time I see a woman online who looks vaguely like me, I wonder if I'm looking at another piece of myself. Distorted, repurposed, sold. I didn't lose my privacy. I lost my face. And no one asked first. Story 68. It started with a magazine cover. Thin, glowing, perfect. I was 13, insecure, and desperate to shrink myself. So I bought a bottle of diet pills from the pharmacy. No ID required. No questions asked. They made my heart race. Couldn't sleep. But I lost weight fast. And people noticed. "You look amazing," they said. No one asked if I was eating. No one cared that my hair was falling out. By 15, I was taking triple doses. I fainted in gym class. My heart rate was 140 while I was sitting still. A doctor finally caught it. He asked me what I was taking. I lied. I stopped when I was 19, after a scare that nearly put me in the ER. But the damage stuck. My metabolism is wrecked. My hormones are a mess. I still get dizzy when I stand too fast. We talk about body image, but we don't talk enough about how easy it is to ruin your body trying to meet impossible standards. Story 69. I was 7 the first time someone called me a slur. I didn't even know what it meant. I just knew the whole class laughed. And the teacher said nothing. I grew up in a small town where I was the black friend, the exception, so articulate. People touched my hair without asking. Made jokes about my skin. Asked if I was adopted. I learned to smile, to laugh it off, to be non-threatening. I became hyper-aware of how I spoke, how I walked, how I dressed. I didn't want to give anyone a reason to treat me worse than they already did. Even now, in my 30s, I flinch when someone says, "You're not like the others." I think about that kid who just wanted to belong, and learned that his skin would always make him stand out. Racism isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the silence, the stares, the way you're made to feel like a guest in your own classroom. Story 70. I got my first job at 17, working nights at an elder care home. I thought it would be easy, helping people, changing sheets, maybe handing out pills. It wasn't. I watched people die. I held hands while they begged not to be left alone. I cleaned bodies that were still warm. I called families who hadn't visited in years. There were nights when we were short-staffed and I had to choose. Feed someone or change someone else's diaper. Sometimes I didn't eat for 12 hours. Sometimes I cried in the supply closet so no one would hear. I was a teenager, and I was doing the work of a nurse, an aide, a grief counselor with no training, no support, and barely minimum wage. I lasted a year before I quit. But the memories stayed. The smell of antiseptic. The way someone's breathing changes just before the end. Taught me compassion. But it also taught me how broken the system is.